Hi there guys, this is Stephen from the Canterbury Crusaders and this is Connor.
Hello.
We are doing a new series of videos called Kick the War Dog. Connor is one of our youngest members at club. He plays Khador. You'll have just seen a photo of the back of his nice red shirt.
Well, I'm not wearing today.
That he's not wearing. Neither am I wearing a club shirt. It's terrible. So what we thought we'd do is we'd start the entire series off with a special Christmas edition, hence the tree and the funny thing on his head. Neither of us know what caster the other person is bringing, therefore by definition not their list at all. We've got a team tournament coming up in April, so we're basically test running some 50-point lists. Hopefully we'll have Connor doing some further videos where people either kick the war dog or the war dog kicks or bites or scratches or claws or whimpers his way out of it. So Connor, what are you bringing?
I'm actually using eSorscha for
eSorscha.
one of the first times.
Okay.
No thing list because none of them really apply to the models I have, but...
Okay, so we've got eSorscha versus, and you'll be very happy for this one, Connor, eMorvhana, in tier at tier 4.
Okay.
I've never played against eSorscha before, so I'm not entirely sure what to expect, especially from army makeup, because neither of us have seen the other person's list yet. You know about eMorvhana, Connor, you know what she's capable of.
Bringing people back to life.
Yep. So we'll see if Connor's slight advantage in knowledge of caster over me does him any good or not. So this is eMorvhana, a Warpwolf Stalker, a Pureblood Warpwolf. We had a Gorax and a Druid Wilder. We've got a max unit of Tharn Ravagers, 2 Gallows Groves, a Chieftain and a Shaman, a Ravager White Mane, a full unit of Bloodtrackers plus Nuala, and a unit of Tharn Bloodweavers. We've got eSorscha, Sylys Wyshnaller, Beast 09, a Devastator and a Destroyer. And that makes up eSorscha's battle group. We've got the Widdowmakers at the back there. We've got a Winterguard Mortar, a Winterguard Field Gun. That is Gorman di Wulfe and Reinholdt. That is a full unit of Winterguard with the unit attachment. There's Mechaniks. Oh, and there was a Kovnik Joe there with the Winterguard on the left. So this is the table we're playing on. We're playing Into the Breach, which means you've got one large circular zone on the far side of the table and one flag on the near side of the table. Now with eMorvhana's Theme Force, which is what I'm running today, we've got all Tharn unit attachments and weapon attachments are 1 point less, so that makes the Chieftain, the Shaman and Nuala herself cost 1 less point. Inclusion of the Druid Wilder allows me to put my upkeep spells into play. So obviously eMorvhana will start with Fog of War up, and I believe you put Carnivore on the Tharn Bloodweavers. Tier bonuses also include a +1 to go first on the starting roll, so I elected to go first, and I also get to redeploy units with prey after all other deployment, which you'll notice in a minute, the rather strange deployment of the Bloodtrackers. Right, so Connor's put his battle group mostly opposite the zone at the far side of the table. I've chosen to go with a more central deployment of my battle group, which will allow me to go after either the flag or the zone. In this game, the zone is worth 2 points to dominate, 1 point if you just hold it, and the flag is worth 1 point to dominate. So obviously the zone is worth more than the flag. However, it's also a harder zone to control and contest. As you can see, Connor is deploying his Winterguard opposite the field, or with the walls to help them. Closer to the camera, as Gorman di Wulfe in a supporting role between the two sets of battle group and units. There's Mechaniks there deploying behind the battle group. And that's my rather obscure deployment of the Bloodtrackers, just because they're going to get the ability to redeploy anyway. So we've got the Tharn Ravagers starting partially in the forest. As he's spreading them out quite a bit to enable them to basically get a run order, go straight through the woods turn 1. I've got one Gallows Grove on the far side of the board, which is on the left of the Ravagers, and the other Gallows Grove on the right of the Ravagers, just this side of the forest. And that's Khador advanced deploying the Widdowmakers on the hill, and now it's me putting the Bloodtrackers down and designating the Winterguard Death Star as their prey target. As you can see, I've left one Bloodtracker and one Ravager close to eMorvhana to enable her feat to be used without the chance of the whole unit being killed off. Made that mistake in a recent steamroller we played. Allowed our local Gatorman player to wipe out my entire unit of Ravagers, which pretty much took me out of the game. So let's just start with a run order from the Bloodtrackers. I've been using this list for about 3 months now. I did play test it at 35 points. This is the first time I've actually ran it at 50 points. I quite like it because, as you can see just from watching this movement now, I'm over the central line of the board at the end of my own turn 1. It forces that line of engagement so far back across the opponent's side of the board, coupled with actually Tharn Ravagers, as much as people moan about how atrocious their defensive stats are, they do pack a massive punch when they charge. I'm power strength 15 at mat 9. I mean, you'll see in a minute they tend to make quite a nasty mess of jacks. Right, so there you go. You can see the 3 war beasts have run and riled. The Gorax has gone around the edge of the forest and then towed back into it with his run. The Stalker naturally has Pathfinder, and the Pureblood Warpwolf for Ghostly this turn. eMorvhana has just moved up, and then Light Cav moved further through the forest. Druid Wilder has run behind her. Both the Gallows Groves have just moved up, and as you can see, the Bloodweavers are now also running into position. We actually decided to run this game on a death clock as well, because we have 50 team tournament, in fact, occurring at the end of April, with several other teams from the South East, and I think the London and possibly even the sort of Essex area. So we thought we'd run this under death clock, just to get used to how the death clock worked. As you can see, the death clock is actually at the front of the screen on my mobile phone. It's very simple, it's a little chess clock app. Right, so kind of sort of figuring out what spells he's going to lay down. Obviously, he's going to put down Iron Flesh on the Winterguard. Iron Flesh giving them +3 defense and -1 speed. However, eSorscha also has as a star action Desperate Pace, which can give the Winterguard +2 speed. So overall, they're only going to be at -1 speed. In addition to, if they give themselves the order to bob and weave, you're looking at they're going to be able to be an effective defense 17. Now, this is one of the reasons I bought a Pureblood, was for the instead of a Feral, or instead of dropping a Gallows Grove and taking another Stalker, was for that blessed weapon ability, which allows you to ignore spells that add to armor or defense. Strictly speaking, I'm not sure if that was a good idea, because eMorvhana does have Purification, which obviously will remove Iron Flesh. However, I thought perhaps the 10-inch spray would be better if I'm going to be behind my own infantry line, being able to reach out with that 10-inch spray. Generally speaking, Stalkers for eMorvhana don't come into play until quite late in the game, so looking at being able to put that spray into use gives me that just extra bit of threat. Right, so you can see Beast has run to the base of the hill. Connor's Destroyer and Devastator have both moved up. He did forget to allocate any focus to the Devastator this turn, which is why it's quite far back behind the building. The Destroyer moved up, took a pot shot at the Tharn Ravager Chieftain, The AoE scatter did a bit of inconsequential damage to a couple of models. And there's the Mechaniks just moving up behind. And that's Gorman running around the other side of the house. Right, so Connor was asking about the defence of the Ravagers, and I was just measuring eMorvhana's control range, because she has the spell Fog of War, which grants me +2 defence, which actually makes the Ravagers' defence 15, which I actually think is a reasonable defensive stat against shooting. I might be wrong. I'm sure people will probably disagree with me. So he's just laying in as much firepower as he can to try and take out at least one of the Ravagers, knowing that they do have quite a hefty charge range, but 9 inches with reach, so they've got an 11-inch threat range, and being that mat 9, power and strength 15, they will be able to kill most things that they target. Right, that's Connor's Winterguard Mortar now that's fired. Unfortunately, it scattered quite badly. It did just clip the edge of that Ravager, which did actually take him out, but that took the Mortar and all 4 of the snipers, the Widdowmakers, to actually do that. Right, so switch back onto my turn. I'm just checking eMorvhana's control range. I've chosen not to upkeep either of my spells. So now I'm going to move forward, check my control range, just check that the Winterguard are in it, and I'm going to use Purification, which basically removes Iron Flesh from the Winterguard. They have also got Tough and Fearless from Kovnik Joe, but I felt that taking 3 off their defence gives my Bloodtrackers a fighting chance to at least take down some of them, given that they are my prey target as well. So I'm equivalent mat and rat of 8 and power and strength of 11. Right, so I'm declaring a charge order. Bloodtrackers have Pathfinder, so they don't really care about going over the wall. The idea here being that they charge, kill a model, and then activate trigger quick work to then try and clear out some more of the unit, and then if necessary will reform backwards or even further into the unit at this point. And as you can see, this is my turn 2, and my Bloodtrackers are almost into Connor's deployment zone, which is why I like eMorvhana's Theme Force. Just having that speed, I think, works out much better than the Wolves of Orboros Skinwalkers style build. Although, to be perfectly honest, I haven't tried that build because my Wolves of Orboros and Skinwalkers aren't painted, so I haven't actually given them a go yet. It will be something I will look into in the future, but at the moment I'm concentrating on giving the Theme Force a thorough run through. Should also be noted the massive threat on the Bloodtrackers is because their prey gives them that extra speed boost when within 10 inches of their prey target. Right, so the extra die I'm rolling there is, I've checked how many of them are actually within eMorvhana's control range, because eMorvhana has a skill called Scales of Fate, which means you can take D3 damage to re-roll a die. So what she's doing is, if I'm getting some silly misses against the members of the Winterguard unit, I'm basically re-rolling my attack rolls, because I want to try and take out as many of them as possible during this turn, so that there's less of them to retaliate back at me. Because apart from having defense 14, Bloodtrackers have no defensive stats in melee, and given that Kovnik Joe can give out a boosted attack rolls ability every turn to the Winterguard, they will be easily able to hit my Bloodtrackers and kill them off. Which is why, like I said, I'm trying to kill off as many of them as possible. So now we're just reform moving. I'm trying to get as many into melee range as possible. Right, so there's the Grove moving up. The only problem I will say with this list is I actually find that Gallows Groves don't seem to be that useful. I'm not sure if it would be a legitimate tactic to kill my own Gallows Groves turn 1, and then feet them back on my feet turn. Right, so declared a charge with the Ravagers. The Shaman has declared charge against the Devastator. There's pretty much no way he'll hurt the Devastator, but as he has Assault and Electro Leap, Sylys Wyshnaller is stood right behind the Devastator, so I'm hoping actually just to kill off Sylys Wyshnaller with the Electro Leap. As you can see, the Chieftain and 3 Ravagers have gone in against Beast, hopefully in an attempt to make a massive dent in him. Right, so that's no damage against the Devastator. They've got the Electro Leap onto Sylys. That won't kill him, so I'm going to take some damage and re-roll it using Scales of Fate. And there we go, Sylys is dead. That's because I don't want Connor to have the free Upkeep turn. Even though I can Purify away, I don't really want to be casting Purification every turn because it does cost 3 of my Fury. And anyone who knows about eMorvhana's playstyle will know that she usually spends a lot of her time on very low health. So we need to have that transfer ability available to her. Right, so like I said, I don't think I've done any damage on melee attack against the Devastator. This is the 4 Ravagers going in against Beast. They do take a hefty chunk out of Beast, not enough to... I don't believe enough to remove any systems, but they do pretty much kill him in one go. If I'd done a bit slightly better on my rolling, or chosen to perhaps Scales of Fate to try and risk getting higher rolls, then I probably would have taken him out. But given that that's just 4 medium infantry... Right, there we go, sent the Bloodweavers in. Set a run order, and we've actually run one of them up to try and engage the Widdowmakers, while the rest of them are moving into the centre to try and screen eMorvhana a little bit, as well as the rearmost Ravager model, again to stop the entire unit being killed, so that I can feed them back. Right, that's the white mane running up. That's the Gorax running and then falling over. Right, put the Pureblood in the middle there because I haven't actually decided what I was going to do with the Pureblood at this point. With that 10-inch spray, I was considering whether or not might have to go after some of the Winterguard, depending on what Connor's next turn forces me into doing. Same for the Stalker. The Stalker is in the middle of that zone, basically, so it can get a charge on pretty much any of Connor's Warjacks next turn. The only silly thing I forgot to do here was I actually forgot to take my light cavalry move with eMorvhana, meaning if I'd managed to move her into the zone, I wouldn't have scored at the end of my turn, but unless Connor can get anything into that zone, I'm scoring at the end of his turn. Right, just to bring back the point of where my units are at the moment, if you look where the Ravagers are, again I'm 2/3 of the way across the table. Again, it's such a massive, massive push, especially with a slow army like Khador, where it forces them onto the back foot. If, say, Connor had been playing Prime Vlad, I think I might have had a bit more of an issue, because he could have feated turn 1 and got his units that much further up the board. Right, so Beast has now gone in, and Beast has a Thresher attack. So, being a heavy warjack, he's easily killing the entire... well, not the entire unit, sorry, the 4... models that are surrounding him at the moment, and they're all dead. That, however, actually is quite handy for me, because it actually opens up a charge lane for me. It means my models aren't in the way of my Warpwolf Stalker. So just checking my control range there, mostly because eMorvhana has a skill called Imperishable Convocation, I think. I'll double check that. Where if you kill one of her warrior models in her control area, she heals a point of damage. So not only can she take the damage to cause the rerolls, but she can also gain health back from her own dying troops, which is very helpful when you're using your health essentially as a resource. In fact, she generally speaking uses that more than she uses her Fury. Right, Gorman di Wulfe is just the other side of that house. We were just checking he wasn't going to move into melee range of my Shaman, because otherwise the Shaman was just going to hit him. He has actually going to throw his black oil template at the Warpwolf, the Pureblood Warpwolf, just in front of him. Which annoyingly has hit and is giving my Warpwolf the blind effect. The black oil, what it does, it gives you -4 mat, -4 defense, means you can't make special actions or special attacks, and means you have to pick whether you sacrifice your movement or your action next turn. Basically, it's really crippling. Luckily, it's only got a 6-inch range. However, I believe it is snipeable if you take Gorman in Signar. Right, that was the Devastator just killing off the Shaman. Now the Destroyers move forwards. Foolishly, what I did do was clump up a lot of really light circle infantry. Connor has managed to kill a few with blast damage. However, at the moment, all that's doing really is fueling eMorvhana's health. It's getting her back up after she cut herself quite a bit for Scales of Fate rerolls in the previous turn. Right, and that's the Mortar, now doing a similar thing, clipping a load of models with blast damage. Alright, as you can see as well from the timers at the front of the board, Connor's now at 39 minutes, I'm still at just under 41. Again, I think that's because I've had a lot of practice with this style of list, whereas Connor is a lot newer to Warmahordes, given that he's been playing, as he said, for what, just over 6-7 months, something like that. Whereas I've been playing for a good 8-9 months solidly since I came back to the hobby. Whilst I've only had maybe about half a dozen to a dozen games with eMorvhana so far, I think she got a lot of depth. You know, there's very simple tricks that you can start with, which are basically just her spell list, and then when you start getting further into the way she plays, using Scales of Fate and Imperishable Convocation, she becomes quite I can understand why people have issues playing against her. She is quite a nasty caster. Right, so Connor's actually just spraying out the Bloodtrackers, or trying to spray out as many of the Bloodtrackers as he possibly can to try and free up his Winterguard unit. He did give them the boosted attack rolls from Kovnik Joe. So I've just taken a command check for them. They actually passed, even with so few of them actually still being alive. Right, so Connor's moving on to Mechaniks to try and heal up what little damage some of his Warjacks have taken. He was principally trying to get to Beast, knowing that Beast will now die to a charge from anything. So he was a little unlucky not to actually be in range. Right, so I just reaved in my Fury. I'm actually feating now. I was trying to figure out when would be the best time to do it, and basically I was just calculating how many models I could get back for each of the units, wanting to get back quite a few for the Ravager unit, given that obviously while they can't attack this turn, they can still move, so they can run into advantageous positions. And there are at least 2 models in the Ravager unit who can still attack this turn, who haven't been brought back. So it was just basically trying to set myself up for next turn, jam up Connor's line a bit, prevent them getting into the zone, which actually should be noted, I did score a point at the end of his last turn. So I'm just moving the charging models first. Decided to charge one into the Devastator, again to jam it more than anything else, and knowing that it did it, I think it did an explosion attack last turn, so it's down to armor 17. For anyone who doesn't know, that is an attack that everyone within base contact with the Devastator takes a POW 18 damage roll, it's blast damage roll, and anyone within 3 inches of the Devastator takes a POW 9, must be, blast damage roll. So the idea is, now that it's down to armor 17, to get stuck in. So I'm only at dice -2 on damage, so I figure I might as well try and do as much damage as possible. As you can see, the rest of the Ravagers have either run into Gorman to distract him. I did also feat one of the Bloodtrackers back into base contact with Gorman just to make sure. And the rest, I believe, are engaging the Widdowmakers just to stop them sort of causing me a nuisance, as it were. Right, that's Beast dead. I believe it actually took the White Mane charging and killing him. Right, we just put down a Connors and have his wreck markers with him, so we put down a proxy base just to allow, so we can see where that would be. And that is a charge from the Stalker, who I believe has got Primal up from the Gorax. Now, anyone who doesn't know what Primal does, it gives me +2 mat, which isn't that brilliant, given that a lot of Khador jacks are only defense 10 anyway, and I'm mat 6, so I'm hitting on 4s regardless. So it actually means I'm hitting on anything but a double 1 now. But the major benefit is it gives me +2 strength, which means in addition to my warping ability, Warpwolves having the choice of 3 abilities every turn. For the Stalker, it's +2 strength, which all Warpwolves share. The Stalker also has the ability to gain Prowl, which under eMorvhana's Fog of War automatically becomes Stealth, which is obviously the appeal of Stalkers with eMorvhana. The third one is Berserk, which is basically an anti-infantry ability. It means every time you kill an enemy with a melee attack, you must make another melee attack, which means you can get a potential 10 melee attacks, providing you kill stuff and there is things in your melee range. The idea of going with the +2 strength on top of the primal +2 strength means I'm actually at power and strength 20 with my main weapon, which basically means whatever I'm rolling is damage against the enemy jack. Sadly, however, I don't believe I killed him. I think I had a couple of duff rolls and I was actually just outside, or no, I must have just been inside eMorvhana's range, but the rolls weren't duff enough for me to consider to re-roll them, so I kept it. It was a little bit of a shame I didn't finish him off. But, you know, he's a mostly crippled jack now. The side effect, or the bad side effect of Primal that should be noted, is it does cause you to auto frenzy next turn. So that will be 1 fully boosted, fully damaged attack on my next turn. So now we've just sent the last few Bloodtrackers charging into the last few Winterguard. I'm having a little bit of a slog over there in the corner. a model actually that's only just on the side of the screen, on the bottom right, is actually Connor's Winterguard field gun. It hasn't been that brilliant this game because it's been facing the Bloodtrackers, which obviously have stealth. Connor was just asking to look at one of the cards for the Bloodtrackers. Nice. Right, there we go, and as you see I've killed almost the entire unit now. I believe they have actually failed their command check as well, but obviously they won't be running away until Connor's turn. So I've just run the Tharn Bloodweavers to the edge of the zone, just again to jam, get in the way, generally cause a nuisance. Chosen to move the Warpwolf Stalker, not Stalker, sorry, the Pureblood Warpwolf, rather than attack with it, because at the moment it's spray. It's not going to be very effective anyway. Right, I've actually swapped straight over to Connor's turn now. Connor is actually trying to disengage whilst fleeing with his Winterguard, which is pretty much causing them to be killed by the Bloodtrackers as they try and flee. So as you can see, at the end of my turn I scored another point, because again, foolishly, I forgot to get myself into a zone or in base to base with the flag, so I didn't dominate anything. It does, however, put me at 2 points to 0, and at the moment Connor is very badly locked out of the zones, which is pretty much the entire point of this list. As I said before, as you can see, the Bloodtrackers are in his deployment zone, pretty much. Everything else, almost my entire army, is on the other side of the zone, and in fact I believe everyone except eMorvhana is on his side of the table. Right, eMorvhana has actually just caused me a world of trouble. She's actually just cast a spell on my Tharn Ravagers. Now, anyone who's ever played against eMorvhana before will probably laugh at me for not remembering she has this spell. But pretty much it stops my entire Ravager unit dead. It's a spell called Freezing Grip. It costs 4, and it isn't offensive, but it is not an upkeep. Target model unit becomes stationary for 1 round unless it has immunity cold, which pretty much means now all of my Ravagers are hit automatically in melee, are defense 5 against shooting, can't do nothing for an entire turn. Having forgotten completely that she had that spell. I think Connor actually probably used it, because now I've just jammed myself with my own unit now as well, because my unit is in the way of me doing anything with them. And that was the Devastator using its Bulldoze ability to push any models it moves into base-to-base contact with it 2 inches. That is the Mechaniks activating and desperately attempting to repair the jack that the Stalker almost killed. I actually did reasonably well. I think he got about half of it back, given that the Stalker will just be attacking with a Frenzy next turn. And I can't attack with the Ravagers. It pretty much stops me doing anything against that particular Jack. I think Connor's inclusion of Reinholdt in this list was essentially because he needed to fill a point. Because he managed to leave some of his models at home, we've ended up using some of my mercenary models to fill a couple of points spaces in his list. So it means the list isn't as optimal as he would have liked. However, Gorman is a pretty good addition. Reinholdt I'm not 100% sure about in this list. Sylys Wyshnaller again, quite reasonable in this list, I think. Right, and then we've just had my frenzy attack from my Warpwolf Stalker at the start of my turn, which has just finished off that one Jack. So I've just advanced with the Pureblood, and I'm actually spraying that way, targeting, I believe, it's the central member of the Mechanic unit, just to try and spray down as many of them as possible. If I can force them to run away, by failing a command check, then all the better. Failing that, it was just I see an opportunity, I will kill some enemy models. There's not really much else that the Warpwolf Pureblood can do at the moment. It won't create that much of a dent on the Devastator. I don't actually think he can get to the Devastator at the moment because there is that Ravager on his left that's been made stationary and another one on his right. This, however, this is basically what I've realised is the problem with this army. I'm so far on the opponent's side of the board, I could practically do with being stood on their side of the board. It means moving units can prove to be quite troublesome. Right, so the Ravager White Mane just charged in and took a swing, I believe at Reinholdt actually on the charge. Has killed Reinholdt, so actually got a heart token. They can then spend these heart tokens to either boost attack or damage rolls, or if they really want to, they can actually spend the token to buy an extra attack. So I've actually had a swing at eMorvhana. I might as well, I'm stood there. If I'd thought about it, sorry, not eMorvhana, eSorscha. If I'd thought about it, I would have moved eMorvhana up, so I'd have been able to get some re-rolls in, just because it would have been nice to have pranged eSorscha with a ton of damage. As it turns out, didn't manage to do that, but anything that puts the threat on his caster. I mean, his caster has hardly left his own deployment zone in this game, which means obviously if it was kill box, it'd be forcing her much closer to me. Right now, the Bloodweavers have charged into the battle mechanics. Now, the Bloodweavers have one of these 3-in-1 choice melee attacks. They can either dispel enemy spells that are active on models and units at the same time. However, with eMorvhana, that's not so much of an issue. They can choose to have an extra dive damage, so they become almost pseudo weapon masters. Again, only against living models and a bit useless against infantry. Or they can do a thing that when they kill a living infantry model, it creates a 5-inch AoE, and enemy models in that AoE take damage. The idea there being that the explosion takes out the rest of the mechanics. The unit also has gang, which gives them +2 to their melee attack and damage rolls while the model they are targeting is within the melee range of another model within that unit. Very handy. Didn't work so well here, and I believe I killed most of the battle mechanics. I'm just enlisting Connor's help now as I run the unit of Bloodtrackers round to threaten eSorscha next turn if the game hasn't already ended. Remembering that I am sat at 3 control points. 2 control points to 0, I think, at the moment. And that's the turn. Without the Ravagers doing much, there wasn't, and with the one Frenzying Beast, there wasn't actually that long on my turn. I did, however, again score 2 control points. So I must be up to 4 to 0 now, which means I've pretty much locked Connor entirely out of the scenario. There is no way he's going to get anything into that box. So now, if there was an actual tournament, this would be all about just doing as much damage as possible to my army as he can, just to try and score as many points as possible for enemy models killed. So he's got literally a few models to be attacking with. I believe he's actually now chosen to use eSorscha's feet as well, because he hadn't used it before. He might as well use it now, try and deal as much damage as possible. Anyone who's not aware, eSorscha's feat is damage to enemy models without immunity cold, currently in Sorscha's control area, that exceeds armour, is doubled this turn. So any damage roll you make, say you go 6 points above enemy's armour, that equals 12 points of damage. Very simple, very easy, very nasty. It's also a pulse from where she activates the feat. I say that because she actually got a spell called Cyclone, which Connor has actually used to allow him to move. Basically, she gets to make another full advance and can't be targeted by 3 strikes. At the end of the movement, she can make 1 melee attack against each model in her line of sight that's in her melee range, and can only be cast once per turn. So, what she can do, she can move her 6 inches forward, pulse out her feet, and then cyclone 6 inches back, should she so desire. It means, you know, if you've got a particularly heavy shooting army, perhaps for Khador, especially all those Winterguard, you can lay down a lot of hurt against enemies, even multi-wound units, and possibly even jacks. Right, he's now actually moved the Devastator into base contact with the Pureblood, and he's done his explosion attack, his AoE thing again. That's actually done quite a bit of damage to the Pureblood. I believe it almost takes out the Pureblood in one go. It's quite a powerful, when it's doing everything over armour is doubled, given that it's a POW 18. So it was dice plus 1 anyway, but then doubled. So as you can see, quite nasty. Cleaned out a lot of the infantry around. Right, so that's the end of our game. It's 5 control points to 0 for the circle. Connor, thoughts on eMorvhana?
Oh no, eMorvhana I'm fine with, but Khador, I've never been good against Circle. Their general very high defence, along with high mobility and ability to dish out lots of damage, never really played to my strengths.
Fair enough, fair enough. From my point of view, I have fielded a 35-point version of that list before. I'm quite happy with how it works. It's very fast. As you can see, pretty much the end of the game ended up in Connor's deployment zone, pretty much.
I never left my side of the board.
Yeah, so it it pushes that line of engagement so far across the board that it really puts your opponent on the back foot for like a scenario that involves zones. With eMorvhana being able to bring back all those troopers as well, obviously it creates quite a difficulty with regards to the attrition war for Connor. However, I will say, when you feated on your final turn, you did move the Devastator into base contact, and it pretty much took all by about 3 boxes off one of my Warpwolves. 4, yeah. So that is, if used properly, I can see that being a really powerful ability.
If I had more things alive, so I could actually have done something to more than just 3 units of your army, that would have been effective.
Yeah. Right, well that's the end of our first Kick the War Dog video, our special Christmas edition.
That was my first time playing eSorscha as well, so
yep.
In my defence. No excuse for being appalling.
So we'll be back with some more videos in the future. Hopefully Connor will be able to beat someone.
Someone who isn't Circle.
Someone who isn't Circle. But that's my Kick the War Dog against you, Connor, so now you've got to challenge someone else at the club. So you've got that one over.
Don't they challenge me?
Probably, so the only way is up from here. Or down really hard.
Yeah.
Right, so thanks for watching.